Book Vedanta, Part 2, Chapter 1. Where does the problem exist? Have we created any unique philosophy? Do we have any unique doctrines and methodologies for ourselves? Do we follow any traditional concepts or instructions? We do not belong to any tradition. In a journey, whenever required, a traveler asks for directions to people that he comes across on his way and confirms the direction to his destination. Similarly, in our spiritual journey too, we have kept in touch with various people. Various masters, scholars and books have helped us. The success of our journey would not have been possible in the absence of their help. Even today, the people whomsoever we have been in contact with and their language are reflecting in ourselves. We could have ignored their language and created our own language like the modern saint J. Krishnamurti did. But we do not want to create such an unique castle of philosophy. We do not have any specific intention of establishing such a castle, welcome people to dwell in it, and maintain the dwellers as well as the castle. Truth does not belong only to us. This absolute truth has been explained by different masters in different words. They might have used different terms, but the concept of absolute truth that was intended to imply seems to be one and the same. We would like you to understand this truth in the same way as we have understood by receiving the help of the approaches of all the masters. So, we have not created a separate language for ourselves. Then, how do we explain our understanding of this absolute truth to others? Don't we require a specific language? We have handled only a few terms out of many other terms that the Shastras, masters, scholars and scientists have used. Even then, a few words have been used in such a way that they don't convey their traditional meaning but give importance only to the message that we need to understand. In that situation, it is essential to understand the terms used by us by fitting them into the practical applicability. Through this, it will be possible to understand the essence of Shastras and other enlightened masters in conjunction with the practical reality. Let us assume ourselves as a tree. Will it be helpful for us to spread our branches to other trees? Or will it be helpful for us if we allow our roots to spread in various directions? It will be healthy only when we make use of the good aspects of everything for our growth by not depending on anything. All of us have two eyes. Let us assume that we are viewing an object that is in front of us with our right eye, closing the left eye. For sure, the object would be clearly visible to us. Now, we are viewing the same object with the left eye, closing the right eye. Again, the same object would be clearly visible to us. The object would be looking one and the same with the right eye as it was seen with the left eye. Now, we are seeing the same object with both the eyes at the same time. What do we see now? We see the same object but with more clarity. When we look at all these ideas and philosophies in conjunction with the practical reality, then they would become our living reality. Our journey might have started from Atma or Brahman, but in reality, we now exist only with our body and the mind. We experience various problems, joys and sorrows. Where did we bring these from? Did we bring them from the Atma or did we bring them from Brahman? We don't bring any of our problems from there. Then, from where have all these problems originated? The grief that we experience is not unreal. They are all realistic. Only if we understand the origin of the problems can we find a way to approach and resolve them. We cannot blame the Atma or Brahman for all our problems. Then, how did our problems come into existence? Where do they reside? When we see a person as our friend, we feel happy. But when we see another person as an unwanted one, we get a feeling of hatred. What is the cause of all these? Where do all these problems happen? All these occur only in our mind. So, what we need to know about is only our mind. The space where we need to seek solutions is also the mind only. To get help on this, we can make use of our Shastras. We can learn from the liberated masters and also from the scientists. All their contributions are needed here. Once there lived a great Bhakta devotee. He had deep devotion to God. He lived in a hut by the riverside. One day, while he was doing prayers, his hut was surrounded by flood due to heavy rainfall. The devotee climbed upon the roof of his hut and prayed, "O God, save me from this flood." A boat came near his hut. The boatman called the devotee to get into the boat. The devotee refused to get down from the roof. He said, "Please don't own up the responsibility of saving me. I have given that responsibility to God. I am sure He will save me." The boat went away. The water level gradually increased and the devotee was drowned in the river forever. After his death, he went to God and complained, "Why didn't you come to save me?" God replied calmly, "Bhakta, I heard your prayer and sent a boat to save you. Why didn't you get into the boat?" Like this devotee, some people are caught up with their favorite philosophies. So, they even discard some truths that come in their way to rescue them. Once, we happened to listen to a discourse by a Vedic scholar. He had great regard and respect for Buddha. He had wholeheartedly accepted Buddha's enlightenment. Even then, unnecessarily, he was criticizing Buddha's teachings. It is quite natural for any enlightened master to share his experience of the truth that he found in his own language. There are many who got enlightenment by following Buddha's teachings. Somehow or other, each philosophy is connected to the absolute truth. So, all those who seek truth should make use of all possible help, even if it comes from small things such as a pin. Now, let us have a look at our mind, which is the source of all our problems. Chapter 2. The function of our mind. Our mind has been explained by splitting it into mind, intellect, chitta, and ego. To have the convenience of explaining our concepts, we have divided our mind into two parts, subconscious mind and conscious mind. Subconscious mind is our nature. By birth, all of us are gifted with certain specific nature and qualities. In our life, we undergo various kinds of experiences. Due to this, our basic nature too undergoes some changes. The part of the mind which holds our basic nature is called the subconscious mind. We have learned many things in our life. All that knowledge has been accumulated and saved in our memory. We have gathered tremendous knowledge. We have known many friends and relatives. They do exist in us as recorded memories. In general, we term them as our memory. Can we call the collection of these memories as our subconscious mind? Can we conclude that the memory exists in our subconscious mind? No, we don't say like that. Our nature is different. Our accumulated memories are different. There is no connection between our subconscious mind and our memories. Subconscious mind is a part of mind that consists of our nature and the structure of character. Conscious mind is the mind that we directly experience at this point of time. It is a part of the mind that we use for our day-to-day functioning. All our thoughts and emotions take place only in this conscious mind. Subconscious mind is something that cannot be accessed by us. But this subconscious mind or our nature is the basic cause of all our experiences. In fact, what we know is only our conscious mind. It is only through this conscious mind that we experience and act. Whatever we know are those things that we can understand with the help of conscious mind. The subconscious mind doesn't fall within the boundary of the conscious mind. So, we don't know anything directly about the subconscious mind. We can know only the functioning of our subconscious mind to some extent through speculation. We assume the existence of an invisible fire by the smoke that is visible to our eyes. Similarly, we can understand the subconscious mind to some extent by the experiences that we undergo in our conscious mind. If we exhibit emotions of anger or fear, we can assume that the nature of getting angry and fearful is existing in our subconscious mind. Emotions expressed as anger are specifically called the conscious mind. The nature which induces our emotions like anger is specified as the subconscious mind. Thus, we understand our mind by splitting it into conscious and subconscious mind. What we are aware of and what we directly experience is our conscious mind only. For the purpose of our understanding, we have to divide this conscious mind further into two parts such as emotional part and intellectual part. What do we mean by the emotional part? What do we mean by the intellectual part? We go through various emotions like joy, sorrow, love, hatred, anger, and fear. All these are associated with the emotional part. How do these emotions occur? Have we ourselves created them? No, they occur on their own. In a particular situation, emotions arise on their own depending on the situation. Let us assume that somebody presents a gift to us. When we receive a gift, we feel happy. Our happiness is not pre-planned. It arises on its own. Similarly, let us assume that one of our expensive items has been stolen by someone. In this situation too, we do not make an attempt to get worried and become sad. Sadness happens on its own. Depending upon the situations we encounter, either joy or sorrow comes about on its own. Is it possible to bring those emotions ourselves? If we bring the emotions that way, how will that be? Let us take an example. Let us assume that we are acting in a movie. The film director expects us to act by emoting expressions like fear or sorrow. We emote those through our facial expressions. But will those emotions be real? In the event of these emotions being real, they would certainly affect our nervous system, blood flow, heartbeat, and the rhythm of our breath. The emotions that we created for our acting don't create any such impact. They can only show some changes in our facial expressions. So, those are not real emotions. They are mere appearances. All real emotions come about naturally and they act in our nervous system. Once, a veterinary doctor described his experience that he underwent. He happened to encounter a lonely wild elephant in a forest. Though he had escaped from the elephant, out of fatal fear, he sweated so much that his entire dress got drenched. Is it possible to create and bring in such fear ourselves? It should come about naturally, not with an attempt to bring in. This part that arises on its own without our knowledge is called the emotional part. This involuntary auto-functioning part consists of feelings. The next part of our conscious mind is the intellectual part. This intellectual part doesn't function on its own. This is a part that we think and act upon. This intellect part is a willfully activated action part. Suppose that we are doing a math. That cannot happen without our intellect. We can do the math only by thinking ourselves. A student studies science or an engineering subject. He can acquire expertise and knowledge in these subjects only through his effort. The expertise doesn't come about on its own. Suppose that we run a business or run an office as an officer. We will not be able to carry out any work without the help of our intellect. Reading and understanding this book becomes possible only with the help of our intellect. If we wanted to travel to another place or to a foreign country, we plan the journey only by using our intellect. Then we execute the plan only by using our intellect. It is only our intellect that guides us to perform our actions. Our emotions act on its own, but our intellect is something that we willfully activate. Thus, our conscious mind exists as two parts, the one that acts on its own and the other that we willfully activate. All our psychological experiences are called as the emotional part. There will be continuously some experience or other in our mind each moment. All these experiences of our mind belong to the emotional part of our mind. Are we satisfied with the functioning of our mind? Does it function up to our satisfaction? Do we get only those emotions that we like? All our emotions are spontaneous and they come about involuntarily. We wish that we should never be sad, but we become sad beyond our liking. We wish that we should not get anger or fear, but beyond our liking, we become angry or afraid. This is how the functioning of our mind has come about. We also struggle to design our mind according to our wishes. Because of that, our mind always remains a battlefield. There is a need for transformation in the mind. There is a need for regulation in the mind. There is also a need for an order within the mind. Here, it is suggested that liberation alone can bring order within our mind. This liberation is nothing but the goal that our mind needs to attain. All these are related to the emotional part of our mind. How is our life structured in the physical external world? Are the various situations that we confront perfect? Are these situations the ones that do not need any change? Even in the external world, order is required. Life in the outer world is just a social setup that we have planned and established all together. If all of us act with a sense of social awareness, simple solution can be obtained. On the contrary, when everyone acts out of selfishness, with a personal motive, unnecessary conflicts arise. What I need is known only to me. Similarly, what you need is known only to you. There may arise a situation where many people compete for a single thing. In that situation, it becomes necessary to bring some discipline into it. Suppose that you travel in your car from north to south. I am also traveling in a car from south to north. Both of us need to use the same road. What will happen if we use the road as per our whims and fancies? We will not be interfering in each other's journey if both of us follow the traffic rules. Like this, we need the discipline in our outer world too. Henceforth, we need discipline in our inner psychological world as well as in the outer physical world. We need to regulate both inside and outside. How to regulate? How to bring in discipline? Once, a psychologist was conducting a meeting. Around 100 people were attending the meeting. He gave to every one of them a balloon filled with air. All the balloons were of the same color. He asked every one of them to write their name on the balloon. Everyone wrote their name on their balloon. Then he asked everyone to place the balloon in one corner of the hall. All balloons were heaped in one corner of the hall. Now the psychologist instructed them. Now every one of you have to find the balloon in which you have written your names. You should find and take the balloon within half an hour. Everyone tried. Half an hour elapsed. Only 2 or 3 people found the balloons bearing their names. Now the psychologist announced, "Now you take only one balloon that you could get hold of and hand over it to the respective owner." Everyone took one balloon each and handed it over to its respective owner. Within 10 minutes, all the 100 people got their respective balloons. Like this, using our intellect, we can bring in equality in our social setup. Various law and order regulations, ethics, and judiciaries have come into existence so that our external activities can be streamlined. By applying and following them properly, we would be able to create an intellectual discipline in the physical external world. With the help of the intellect, we have an opportunity to bring in order and discipline in our external actions. How to regulate our psychological inner world? Outer world or life is not in our hands. It is linked with many people. Our effort alone cannot regulate or streamline the physical external world. But the psychological world is completely in our hands only. We do not need help from anyone else to regulate it. How do we resolve our inner emotions within ourselves? Chapter 3. Solution to the problems. Where do our problems exist? Are the problems located inside us or outside? Suppose a person familiar to us scolds us using disgusting words in a public place. We get mental agony and anger on him. Let us assume that the person who scolded us is a lunatic. Now, will his scolding create the same distress and anger as we felt in the first instance? If we consider him as a mentally stable person, his scolding creates agony in us. When we consider him as a mentally retarded person, his action does not give us agony. It is the same action in both the scenarios, but the effect differs depending on the way that we take it. Our mind is affected by the way we handle and react to an external situation. Problems are created in our mind depending upon the participation of our mind. Though the external environment is an important cause of the psychological experiences of our mind, the real cause of our happiness and misery is the way our mind treats the situation. So, the cause of all the problems of our mind is the way our mind functions. How does our mind function? Let us look at it through an example. We have a valuable object with us. We have been securing that object with utmost care. In spite of our security measures, the object is destroyed. The destruction of that object causes mental distress to us. Destruction happens only upon the object. Then, why should the destruction of that object bring about distress within us? Why does it give pain to us? In a marketplace, many cars have been parked in a line. Let us assume that one of the cars parked there is burning as it caught fire. What will we do then? We have seen such scenes of burning cars in the movies and television shows. Here, we got a chance to see it directly. In the event of the burning car belonging to someone else, we watch the scene with fun. But if the burning car belongs to us, we won't be able to watch that with fun. We would feel as if the fire that caught the car was like a fire that caught up on our body. Why is it so? Only with the help of our mind we understand these incidents of the burning car and the loss of a precious object. If our mind does not function, we will not be able to understand what is really happening. It is alright if our mind shows only the event what is really happening. But the function of our mind doesn't stop there. It also attaches some unnecessary expectations along with it. The mind, which shows the destruction of the object, also expects that the object should not have been destroyed. Like this, our mind takes dual stand. We do not have two minds. What we have is a single mind. One part of the mind shows the destruction of the object. The other part of the mind says that the object should not have been destroyed. Like this, these two parts contradict amongst each other. The incidents are over. It can't be reformed. But our mind expects that those incidents should not have happened. How to accept something that has happened as something that should not have happened? The second part of the mind, which expects, becomes more powerful. How much ever powerful it is it possible to undo the incident that had happened already? Is it possible to bring back the destroyed object to its original form? But our mind is seeking such a change. We are seeking that. These two parts of our mind contradict with each other and create friction, depression, and distress. This is what is called mental agony. The contradiction between something that has happened already and the non-acceptance of the past event and resistance towards it is called distress. Next, how do we react? We once again contradict against the mental agony, distress, saying that we do not like this mental agony. In the first instance, the object that we liked got destroyed. We contradicted against that incident by saying that it should not have been destroyed. This contradiction only created the distress in us. Now, we again start contradicting against this mental agony, saying that we did not like that. Because of this contradiction, our mental agony intensifies. Wherever contradiction exists, conflict, friction, and agony would also coexist. So, the source of all our distress is nothing but the contradictions of our mind. If we have contradictions, we will also have distress. If contradiction disappears, then our distress will also disappear. So, getting rid of our mental agony is nothing but getting rid of the contradictions. This nature of contradiction is the root cause of all our problems. How can we get rid of this contradicting nature, which is the source of all our problems? If we get rid of the contradicting nature of our minds, it means that we have got rid of all the problems. How to get rid of this contradicting nature of our mind? What does the demand of getting rid of the contradicting nature show? Even this desire to get rid of this contradicting nature is again a demand against the nature of contradiction itself. First, we contradicted against our loss, destruction of the object. Because of this contradiction, we got mental agony. We could not accept this mental agony too. Secondly, we contradicted against mental agony also. Once we understood that this contradiction is the root cause of all our mental agony, thirdly, we started to contradict against the contradicting nature itself. Like this, in every layer of our approach, we renew this contradicting nature. This contradicting nature itself acts like a magical trap and freezes us. Now, we have to analyze this contradicting nature a bit deeper for a better understanding. What is this contradicting nature? How does it function? Contradiction is a type of opposing nature. What do we oppose? We never oppose the experiences of joy and pleasure. We always like the aspects of happiness and pleasure. So, we do not oppose them. We hate the emotions like sorrow and fear. So, we oppose them and we contradict against them. Why do we contradict like this? In the functioning of our mind, we have this pleasure-seeking tendency. The tendency to seek pleasure contradicts and fights against the aspects of the stress. Now, we have understood the reason for our contradicting nature. This pleasure-seeking tendency only activates the contradicting nature also. As long as we have this pleasure-seeking tendency, the contradicting nature will also exist. Now, this contradicting nature is not the problem that we need to resolve. What we need to resolve and find a solution for is our pleasure-seeking tendency. How to get rid of this pleasure-seeking tendency? This is our next question. What is the real meaning of this question? We have seen that the pleasure-seeking tendency is the root cause of all our problems. If we can get rid of this pleasure-seeking tendency, then we can also come out of all our problems. We like to get rid of our problems because we think no problem state is also a type of pleasure. So, we desire for this pleasure. So, getting rid of this pleasure-seeking also becomes another type of pleasure-seeking. In this situation, how to resolve our problems? Our problems are getting more and more complicated by all the efforts that we put in to resolve them. None of our efforts resolve our problems. Our own efforts imprison us. It appears that all the ways and gates are closed for us. How to proceed further? What is the solution for our problems? In Buddha's life too, he met with the same situation and faced the same problem. He observed that the whole world was suffering and people were unable to come out of their sorrows. As a representative of the humanity, he set out on finding ways and means to get rid of these sufferings. What needs to be done to come out of the sufferings? He was introduced to so many spiritual practices like various yoga and meditation by two masters. He focused his mind and practiced various meditations. During the meditations, he underwent various kinds of ecstatic experiences. All his sufferings disappeared and his mind entered into a realm of blissfulness. All his blissful experiences provided only a temporary solace but not a permanent solution. He started to practice intense meditation. He even adopted fasting. His health condition deteriorated. Yet, he couldn't find a solution that he set out to search for. He was feeling dejected. He began to understand that the meditations that he was practicing would not give him the expected solution. He concluded like this because he had efficiently completed all the spiritual practices that were taught to him without leaving anything undone. Those practices could not take him forward beyond this. What to do next? There was nothing left to be done. At the same time, he could not achieve the results that he expected. By accepting his defeat in all his efforts and in a state of not being able to proceed further, he sat down below a tree in a helpless state of mind. All his efforts proved futile and there was no door remaining to knock further. He sat calmly underneath the tree, helplessly without knowing the direction forward. In that state, he got the solution that he was desperately yearning for all his life. It happened to him unexpectedly. He could not understand what had happened to him. He could not believe the happening, but the happening is real. He introspected into himself, thinking what had happened to him. His mind had started functioning in an entirely new dimension that was different from the way it functioned so far. There was a seeking in the mind that was functioning earlier, but the new mind did not have any pursuit. He named this new dimension of this mind as the state of nirvana. What is this state? What did he discover? He describes in detail about his discovery. He explained that desire is the root cause of all our suffering. He preached that if you get rid of all the desires, you may get rid of all your suffering. The statement, desire is the root cause of the suffering, is only a superficial description. What Buddha discovered was something different. He discovered an entirely new dimension of functioning of his mind. In that functioning of the mind, there were no desires and sorrows which entangle us. What is that new state? What is that functioning? Once, a saint went to the palace of a kingdom. After extending royal reception to the saint, the king explained all his problems to the saint and sought a solution to all his problems. O saint, I have the burden of many responsibilities. Hence, my mind has always been uneasy. Some sort of depression has always been broiling me. How to get rid of these? Please show me a way. The king placed his request to the saint like this. The saint told the king with a smile, "You need not worry about your depression. You hand over all your worries to me." "How can I hand over my worries to you that is within my mind?" asked the confused king. The saint replied, "Well, you need not give it to me. Have you now realized that all your worries are within your mind? You hand over your mind with all its worries to me. Let me rectify all your distress and hand over a distress-free mind back to you." "How can I hand over my mind to you? It is within me," asked the king. The saint replied, "Are you quite sure that your mind and its worries are within you?" "Yes, I am sure about that," the king said. The saint replied, "You need not hand over that to me. You keep it with you. But do a favor to me. Please see within yourself as to which part of your mind do the worries reside. The moment you find them, please call me. I will come there itself and remove all your worries." Following what the saint said, the king deeply introspected and said to the saint, "O saint, when I look within myself, I don't find anything there. Nothing exists there." The saint replied, "You only said you had worries in your mind. Please search patiently without any hurry." The king said, "I have seen inside very well. I cannot see anything there." What is the problem with the king? Why can he not locate the place where his worries reside? Once, in one of our discourses, during a question and answer session, one participant raised the question, "I am getting angry very easily. I find it difficult to control it. What should I do to control and overcome my anger?" My discussion with him went on a lighter note. I replied to him, "You have got two viewpoints. The first one is that it is very easy for you to get angry. The second one is that it is rather difficult for you to control it. You stated that it is very difficult to control anger. At the same time, you are asking me how to control that. If I tell you that it is not difficult to control anger and it can be controlled very easily, then I will become responsible for giving you the instructional steps. But I accept your second point of view as my own viewpoint. Your idea is that it is very difficult to control anger. I too accept that idea. Hence, I may not be qualified to give you advice on how to control anger. Though I accept your second viewpoint, I am unable to accept your first one. You have yourself told that it is easy to get angry. You should prove that to me. If you say that it is very hard to get angry, I will not ask you to prove. But you have said that it is very easy for you to get angry. If it is so, please keep the anger with you from the morning to the evening and show it to me." Our conversation went on like this. Is it possible to remain and retain in anger from morning to evening? Can we bring up emotions as we wish? Can they be retaken as per our wishes? Let us assume that there is dirt in our dress. Will it disappear by itself? No, it will not go on its own. The dirt will go off only if it is washed with some detergent. But there is no necessity to do something towards removing the emotions such as worry, fear and anger that we get. Those emotions disappear on their own. By attempting to do something towards removing these emotions, they actually get renewed in one way or the other. In fact, no feeling is under our control. We cannot bring out any feeling voluntarily, and also we can't remove any feeling. We have seen firecrackers. They explode with sound and light. With that, it just disappears. They disappear with no residue. There is nothing that remains after that. Similarly, our emotions too burst out like the firecrackers and disappear instantly. We do not have any need to streamline that. Every second, our feelings emanate like a cracker, explodes, and it is over. Every experience we face in our lives is nothing but a similar short explosion. There is no necessity for us to regulate it. We would have seen the thunder and lightning during rainy season. We see lightning as flashes of bright light. Only after the disappearance of the lightning can we hear the sound of the thunder. No one is afraid of the flash of the lightning. Only when we hear the thunderous noise, we are afraid. We close our eyes thinking that it would fall on us. In fact, there is no possibility of the thunder that we heard to fall on our head. The thunder and the lightning occur simultaneously. As light travels faster than the sound, the lightning reaches us faster and the sound of the thunder takes more time to reach us. When we feel the roar of the thunder, it really does not exist there. Similarly, our emotions explode and disappear. Only when it explodes and disappears, we are aware of it. Such explosion turns out to be our experience. Though our emotions are psychological, they leave certain vibrations in our nervous system. So, they create chemical changes in our body. Though these involuntary unconscious emotions disappear in less than a second, it takes a few seconds for these chemical changes to get balanced in our body. So, they create an impression that those emotions appear to be extending for a longer duration of few more seconds. As a result, we misunderstand that we need to do something to get rid of these emotions. Let us say that we have a wide vessel full of water. With our finger, we touch the surface of the water. The still surface of the water gets disturbed and a round wave is created in concentric circles. What do we need to do to remove the wave's ripples? Should we rub the ripples with our hands to make it still? If we do that, new waves would be created. If we leave them undisturbed, the concentric ripples will automatically get balanced and soon disappear. We do not have to do anything for this. We have seen wash basins. There are various types of wash basins with taps to wash our hands. In some taps, we need to turn the handle to get water, and in some other designs, we need to press the lever to get water. If we stop pressing the lever, the water flow will also stop. Recently, during one of my trips to Malaysia, I happened to wash my hands in one such wash basin. The mechanism of that tap was similar to the one in which one needs to press the tap with finger. Once the lever was pressed with finger, water flowed. But the flow of water did not stop even after the lever had been released. Assuming that there may be an error with my handling the tap, I pressed it again and again, trying to stop the water flow. But it didn't stop. I asked the passerby how to stop the water flow. He suggested to leave the tap as it was and went off. Thinking that he was giving an irresponsible answer, I tried again to stop the water flow. But the water flow did not stop. I did not have any other alternative but to leave the tap as it is, as the person had told me. As soon as I moved a little away, the water flow from the tap stopped. The tap had been designed like that. Once pressed with finger, it gives adequate amount of water and stops automatically. By pressing it again and again, we disturb the possibility of stopping the water. Similarly, all our involuntary unconscious emotions too balance on its own automatically. Indeed, all our problems are psychological in nature. They get resolved automatically. To resolve the external problems we face with the external situations, we require support from other people. On the other hand, we do not require any help or cooperation from others to resolve our inner psychological problems. Even our own effort is not needed for the inner problems. Instead of resolving the problems, our efforts intensify the problems. All our psychological problems get resolved on its own without anyone else's help. Chapter 4: Enlightenment and Liberation. Many people say that attaining jnana, enlightenment, is the highest state of spirituality. In one way it is correct, but in another way it is incorrect. In spirituality, the highest state is mukti, moksha, liberation. Jnana, enlightenment, is only the path, but our destination is mukti, liberation. Some people combine both enlightenment and liberation as one. This causes unnecessary confusion. In fact, there is no state such as enlightenment, but there exists a state called mukti. Suppose we are traveling in a car to Chennai, a state city in India. On the way, at one junction, the road diverges into two directions. One road leads to north and the other leads to south. We do not know which road to choose to reach Chennai, the one leading to north or the one leading to south. We inquire a person standing there. He guides us to select the road that goes to the north. This is only an information. By using this information, we reach Chennai. Information is not the destination. By using the information, we reach our destination. Enlightenment is also like an information like this. It is only an intellectual information. By using this information, we reach our destination called liberation. There exists a state called mukti, but there is no state called enlightenment. It is only an information. We can say that Chennai is a city. But can we consider an information saying, take the road that goes in the northern direction to Chennai as a city? Can we consider that this message itself is Chennai? No, we can only mention that it is a message. Information is only an intellectual message. It is not an experience. Only if we reach Chennai, we can see and experience Chennai. We cannot experience Chennai with the information of how to reach Chennai. Mukti is a true state. It is a lively state. But enlightenment is not a state. It is an information only. Enlightenment is an information and a message recording the do's and don'ts of attaining liberation. Some people mistakenly call the state of liberation as enlightenment. So, they consider enlightenment as a state of experience. Enlightenment and liberation are entirely different. They are not able to distinguish between the two and understand this truth. Unless we understand that enlightenment is different from liberation, we may never understand enlightenment and we may never attain liberation. Of course, there is a justifiable reason behind the confusion of considering enlightenment and liberation as one and the same without properly distinguishing the difference between the two. We have seen that an information on the road leading to north would take you to Chennai, and hence you should not go towards south is just an understanding. Using this information and by traveling towards north, we reach Chennai. This kind of information is called as enlightenment. Is enlightenment also an information like this? Should one attain liberation using an information like this? The information and the examples that we know help us to reach Chennai. But the reality seems to be different. We do not need to travel to attain liberation. No effort is required for that. There is no doubt that liberation is the highest level of spirituality. The goal of our human life is to attain liberation. There is no doubt in this too. But liberation is not a state to be attained. The state in which we exist itself is a state of liberation. Our natural state itself is liberation. What is liberated state? The innocent and childlike state of our mind is the state of liberation. We have already seen the behavior of the children. Have you seen how a 2 or 3 years old child behaves? The child expresses its emotions freely. The child expresses happiness, fear, and anger. But does it ever feel guilty of such an expressed emotion? The child never considers any of its emotions as wrong ones, nor does it consider any of its emotions as superior ones. Does the child have intellect? Just because the child is not feeling guilty, does it mean that it doesn't have intellect? Yes, it has intelligence. By using its intellect, it recognizes its parents. Whatever the child needs, it asks the parents alone. The child keeps itself away from strangers other than parents. A child also applies its intellect for its action. It doesn't fight against maintaining its emotions. As we intellectually keep growing, we start contradicting and struggling against our emotions. We lost our innocent state by acquiring various experiences in life and by accumulating knowledge. Though we are stocked up with knowledge and experiences, our basic happiness and pleasant nature have disappeared. Without losing knowledge and experience, can we get back our natural innocent state of mind? If our mind acts without the involvement of intellect, then our psychological emotions appear and disappear on its own. The state in which all our emotions flow like a stream without the influence of intellect is called the state of liberation. The natural state of our mind is this free-flowing, streamy state. This natural state is called the state of liberation. Only is this the healthy state of mind? If our mind acts in a healthy state, then it means that it is acting in a state of liberation. We know about our tongue. We experience 6 different kinds of tastes through our tongue. The experience that the food creates in our tongue is called as taste. If we eat a sweet, the quality of the sweet creates a reaction in our tongue. It is this reaction that is called as taste or sweetness. Once the food that we ate crosses the tongue and enters the stomach, the taste also disappears. When we eat a sweet, we experience the sweetness in our tongue. Then it disappears. If our tongue is unable to let the sweet taste go, what does it mean? It means that our tongue is not in order. It means that the tongue has lost its health. Like this, our human body has 5 sense organs. Sound is perceived through our ears. We see through our eyes. We breathe through our nose. Taste is perceived through the tongue. Touch is sensed through the skin. Our sense organs reflect the contact it has with them as sensory perception. When we hear a noise, for that particular moment, it is reflected as sound in our ears. It ends there. When we see a lightning, it appears to our eyes as lightning for that particular moment and then it disappears. Like this, all our sense organs express their reflections for a moment and they get detached even from that reflection. A mirror reflects the image of an object that is placed in front of it. If new scenes or persons appear in front of it, the mirror too reflects new images. It doesn't retain any image in itself. Our sensory organs also function like this mirror. The experiences that are reflected in our sensory organs also befall and disappear every moment. No particular taste is retained in our tongue for more than a moment. No particular scene is retained in our eyes for more than a second. No particular sound is retained in our ears for more than a second. The moment it retains, it indicates the failure of that particular sense organ. Only when all our sensory organs function like a mirror are they in their natural and healthy state. The mirror has a unique way of functioning. That is, they reflect and they don't retain any images. It is the mirror's natural state. All our sense organs too function in a similar way. It is the natural state of our sense organs. Apart from the 5 sense organs, we have our mind, which is our 6th sense organ. All our 5 sense organs function as jnanendriyas. They don't play the role of karmendriyas. What is the concept of jnanendriya and karmendriya? The aspect of jnanendriya is nothing but the aspect of intellect and sensory perception like touching, sensing heat and chillness, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, etc. Karmendriya aspect is different. Tasting through our tongue is a jnanendriya aspect. We speak through our mouth and it is not a sensory function. It is karma, action. This is karmendriya aspect. Speech through mouth, actions of the hands and legs, excretion and reproduction, these are all karmendriya aspects. Our 5 sense organs play the role of jnanendriya, but our mind adapts both the aspects of jnanendriya and karmendriya. Depending on the external situations that we encounter, emotions such as joy, sorrow, like, dislike, fear and anger arise in our mind on its own. They arise as a reaction to an external situation. These involuntary spontaneous emotions that come about in our mind without even our knowledge are the jnanendriya aspects. Their nature is that they appear and disappear on its own. In our sense organs, sensory perceptions get reflected and disappear. Similarly, in our mind also, all the emotions get reflected and disappear. This is the jnanendriya aspect of our mind. When our mind functions in the jnanendriya aspect, it should be considered as one among our sense organs. When does our mind, which functions in the jnanendriya aspect, start functioning in the karmendriya aspect? Our mind takes the role of the intellect and manages all the activities. If we want to eat, it triggers our legs to walk towards the dining room. It triggers our hands and the mouth to eat the food. Let us assume that we are driving a car. What does happen here? Our eyes reflect the images that appear before us on the road. Here, our eyes function as jnanendriya and reflect the images. We listen to the sounds across the road through our ears. Here too, our ears function as jnanendriya and reflect the sounds. Our mind receives all the information, decides on how we should be driving on the road, and then operates our hands and legs. When our mind thinks, takes decisions and operates concerned parts of our body, it functions as karmendriya. the mind which thinks and operates exists as Karmendriya aspect. The mind which functions as the Karmendriya operates the Karmendriyas like mouth to speak, hands, legs, etc. All the Karmendriyas function by following the orders of our mind. Our heart functions, our lungs function, many other internal organs function. They are not called as Karmendriyas. Those organs which accept and execute the commands of our mind alone are called as Karmendriyas. Without the help of our mind, our mouth does not speak, our hands and legs do not do anything. Do we require the command of our mind for the functioning of Jnanendriyas like hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling and touch sensing? Without the instruction of our mind, all our Jnanendriyas reflect whatever they come across. What will happen if our mind gives instructions involving in the functioning of our Jnanendriyas, the sense organs? We have seen that all our sense organs are Jnanendriyas. We taste the food. Our tongue acts as Jnanendriya and reflects the taste of the food. What will happen if our mind also involves in this function? When our mind connects itself with the taste that our tongue reflects, we intellectually understand what we eat. We intellectually understand whether we taste a fruit or milk. It is a function of our mind that makes us understand the taste that we experience. We have seen that our mind functions in two forms, Karmendriya as well as Jnanendriya. Our mind intellectually understands and identifies a particular taste. What should we consider this understanding of our mind as? Has it functioned like Jnanendriya or has it functioned like Karmendriya? Intellectually understanding something is the Jnanendriya aspect of our mind. Knowing and feeling are all Jnanendriya aspects only. This is how the Jnanendriya aspect of our mind functions on the Jnanendriyas which exist as our sense organs. Is it possible for the Karmendriya aspect of our mind to act upon the sensory Jnanendriya aspects? We have already seen what is meant by the functioning of the Karmendriya aspect of the mind. While driving a car, it is the Karmendriya aspect of our mind that manages various actions such as steering and changing gears by using our hands, handling the clutch and accelerator by using our legs, etc. This is how the Karmendriya aspect of our mind operates the Karmendriyas of our body. Like this, what will happen if the Karmendriya aspect of our mind connects with the Jnanendriya aspect of the sense organs and operates them? All our sense organs are like a mirror, exist in an innocent state. A mirror reflects whatever is placed in front of it, irrespective of any likes and dislikes. Similar to this, our sense organs too experience and express whatever they come in contact with, irrespective of its likes and dislikes. We eat a sweet. Our tongue reflects the sweetness. The sweetness provides a kind of pleasure to the tongue. We consume a bitter medicine. Our tongue reflects the bitterness as it is. The bitterness creates displeasure in the tongue. All this information is stored in our mind as recorded memories. Next time when we happen to eat a sweet, the information which is stored in our mind in the form of likes and dislikes interferes with the reflective aspect of the tongue. The tongue prepares itself to accept sweetness and reject bitterness. The tongue that was functioning naively with innocence has started functioning cunningly. It is the Karmendriya aspect of the mind that conveys to the sense organs the message of what should be accepted and what should be rejected. When a child is administered an injection, it is quite natural for the child to cry out of pain. But the fact that the child starts crying as soon as it sees the needle is due to the interference of the Karmendriya aspect of the mind. Just like the pleasurable sensations and painful sensations occur in the bodily sense organs, the psychological emotions occur in our mind also may be either pleasurable or painful. We like it when we feel happy. We hate emotions such as sorrow and fear. The very nature of them is like that. A sweet makes us happy and bitter taste makes us unhappy. Similarly, pleasure gives us happiness, sorrow and fear makes us unhappy. Just because sweetness provides pleasure, if the tongue prefers to exhibit only sweetness always and not bitterness, then it means that our tongue is spoiled. It has lost its eligibility to be a sense organ. It has lost its qualification of functioning as one of the jnanendriyas. Be it our sense organs or our mind, only when they function as jnanendriya will they be considered as healthy. Only when the psychological emotions such as joy and sorrow function as jnanendriyas by appearing and disappearing every moment can we conclude that our mind functions in a healthy state. As long as the karmendriya aspect of our mind does not take the responsibility of managing the emotions of our mind functions in its natural, healthy state. Actually, liberation is the natural state of our mind. The average humans are with the habit of fighting against their mind. So, they have tagged the reverential jargons such as state of nirvana, state of mukti, etc. to this natural liberated state and started worshipping that by placing it on a divine platform. In reality, we should be wearing this free-flowing state of our mind as our footwear and walk over it. This is the practical reality. The karmendriya aspect of our mind should manage only the karmendriyas. The karmendriya aspect of our mind should not interfere with the jnanendriya aspects. It must allow the jnanendriyas to function freely on its own. Then only our mind will function in a healthy state. This healthy, free-flowing state of our mind is called mukti, liberation. Chapter 5. Inner world and outer world. What is our inner world? What is our outer world? Our mind is our inner world, psychological world. In our mind, we come across various kinds of emotions such as joy, sorrow, fear, anger, and desire. All these are emotions of our mind. This is called as inner psychological world. We involve in various kinds of intellectual thinking. By using this intellect alone, we manage various activities, occupations, and business. Our intellect also comes under our inner psychological world. Our mind is a manifestation of emotions and intellect. We call this mind as our inner psychological world. What is the outer physical world? We perform the role of a teacher. We perform the role of a doctor. We perform the role of an officer. We have to carry out our duties towards the responsible positions we hold. The responsibilities and the duties that we perform and the situations that we come across belong to the outer world, physical world. Though we classify our mind as inner psychological world and outer physical world, both are interconnected. Let us assume that someone misbehaves with us. We have not committed any mistake, but he falsely accuses that we have done something wrong. This is an external action that creates pain and agony in our mind. We become angry towards that person. This pain and the anger that arises in our mind belongs to our inner psychological world. The external actions and the situations are the cause for these inner emotions. Due to this anger that arose in us, we indulge in a fight with that person. Fighting with that person is an external action. This belongs to the outer physical world. The anger that arose in our mind belongs to our inner psychological world. External world is the cause of inner world and inner world is the cause of external world. Even then, they are different. Though both the psychological and the physical worlds are different, they are entangled with one another. Why should we see and analyze this as two different parts? Only when we differentiate like this can we understand where we should act and where we should not. In our mind, various kinds of emotions arise involuntarily. They may be feelings of joy, sorrow, fear, and distress. When we feel joyful, we do not try to manage it. But when unfavorable emotions arise, we struggle to discard them. When we feel happy, there is no work that we need to carry out. But when emotions like fear, anger, and sorrow arise, we feel that there is work for us to discard them. By just taking up that kind of work, we will not be able to provide a solution to our inner psychological feelings by handling our emotions. Whatever work that is taken up, if we raise a question, what is the purpose of doing it? Then what would be our answer? Either it will be about regulating our psychological emotions or it will be about regulating the external situations. In other words, it will be either regulating our inner world or our outer world. Like this, our activities fall under the two categories, inner world and outer world. In fact, we do not have to do anything to regulate our psychological emotions. So, as far as our inner psychological world is concerned, we do not have any work to do. It is sufficient if we understand what the inner world is. We can get rid of all the associated struggles and our efforts to set right the psychological world. Let us assume that we struggle about something. If we ask ourselves towards what do we struggle against, then what would be our answer? In case we respond by saying that our struggle is to regulate our psychological emotions, then we can understand that it is an unnecessary struggle. If our struggle is to resolve and rectify our external situation, then it is our duty and responsibility to approve of our struggle. It is our duty to plan and execute our efforts successfully. As far as the outer physical world is concerned, we need to consider only one aspect. Are all our efforts and struggles based on ethics and justice or not? This is what we should be concerned about. All these ethical and righteous aspects are not natural. They are all artificially created for our convenience. All these are just disciplinary aspects, controls, defensive fences. Living righteously means that we must execute all our efforts successfully by not crossing these fences. As far as our outer physical world is concerned, we should adhere to the dharma, righteousness, justice and ethics to be followed. As far as our inner psychological world is concerned, we should understand that there is neither any work to be carried out nor any dharma, justice and ethics to be followed. For our inner world, enlightenment or surrender shall be our way of life. As far as the inner world is concerned, understanding our helplessness is enlightenment. Going by the flow of the inner events by not trying to detach ourselves from the inner events and by not trying to streamline them is surrender. As far as our inner psychological world is concerned, there is nothing good or bad. There is nothing superior or inferior. All of that are just shadows, something that does not exist or a mirage. We do not need to do anything about it. A lady known to me lives in Coimbatore, a city in India. It is said that in her previous birth, she happened to be the direct disciple of the great master Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. she used to have rare spiritual experiences. Experiences of ecstatic and samadhi states without any effort put in by her. She used to undergo these experiences naturally. She even started to have a few disciples around her to take care of her. Once, when she contacted, she asked me during our conversation, "At times, I get the ecstatic experience. During that moment, I feel as if I am the God. I think that this is the greatest experience I ever had. What do you think about that?" The essence of my reply to her is this: "Ma, undoubtedly your experience is one of the greatest. Not everyone gets these kinds of experiences. For sure, it's a rare experience. If an average human wants to undergo this sort of experience, one needs to perform a lot of spiritual practices. Only with such great effort and perseverance can he or she may get these spiritual experiences. Your natural ability to undergo these experiences without involving in any effort or practice indicates that you have born with some special qualities by your birth itself. At the same time, there is another aspect that you need to understand. Instead of this ecstatic experience, if you happen to undergo negative emotions such as anger, hatred, jealousy, sorrow, and fear towards someone, then there is no difference between these ecstatic experiences and those negative emotions. Basically, both the emotions, ecstatic experiences, and the negative emotions are of same kind. As far as our psychological emotions are concerned, they must appear and disappear instantly on their own. It is not right to cling on to an emotion just because it makes us feel good, or to just chase away some emotions just because it makes us feel bad. Therefore, for the inner emotions, there is nothing superior or inferior. All our emotions are mere shadows only. So, there is no necessity for us to act upon. Most of the great sayings, Mahavakya, by the enlightened masters directly address our inner psychological world only. Do nothing is one such saying. This doesn't indicate the state of being idle without doing anything in the physical world. This statement indicates the effortless state of not trying to regulate our psychological emotions in our inner world. In Ashtavakra Gita, the sage Ashtavakra describes the quality of an enlightened master through this example. An enlightened master never gets surprised or perturbed even if by chance the scorching sun changes itself to be the moon and starts flinging cool rays, or by chance the cool moon changes itself to become the sun and start emitting hot scorching rays. If this type of approach is applied in our outer physical world, it would lead to complete chaos. This approach is suitable only to our inner psychological world. As far as our inner psychological world is considered, expectations on the way our mind should function is also wrong. The right approach would be to allow our mind to function on its own as per its nature. The official language of our inner psychological world is freedom only. The aspect of the outer physical world is totally different. There we have various types of discriminatory aspects such as good and bad, right or wrong, do's and don'ts, etc. So we certainly need planning and order in the outer world. As far as our inner psychological world is concerned, virtues such as righteousness, discipline, justice, ethics, all are wrong. There is neither good nor bad in our inner psychological world. In our inner psychological world, all the happenings are mere shadows and reflections only. As far as the shadows are concerned, there is nothing called as a good shadow nor a bad shadow. Discriminating them as good or bad, wanted or unwanted is wrong. As far as the emotions of our inner psychological world are concerned, our intellect has no business there. The functioning of our intellect is required only for external actions. Improper use of our intellect will lead to the failure of our external physical actions. As far as our external actions are concerned, all our actions should be similar to that of a righteous, wise person. In our mind, our thoughts and our emotions arise on their own. For instance, in a particular situation, happiness arises on its own and fear or anger erupts without our knowledge. All our emotions are not converted into actions unconsciously without our knowledge. In our inner psychological world, all our emotions arise involuntarily, but all that becomes actions only after we approve them. Suppose we have kept an expensive glass jar in our drawing room. Our child, who is aged less than 5, pushes it down and the jar breaks into pieces. The moment we see it, we become angry. In that rage, we scold the child and even beat him up. We convert our instant anger into action. Did this action take place unconsciously the same way we became angry unconsciously? Let us approach the same example in a different way. Suppose a close relative visits our home with his child of the same age. The child pushes the expensive glass jar and the jar breaks into pieces. We become angry on this child also the same way we became angry on our child unconsciously. But do we beat our relative's child as we did with our child? Definitely not. Why it is so? Our actions do not happen without our knowledge, unlike the anger we got unconsciously. Since we have the responsibility of keeping our child under disciplinary control, we express our anger on the child after approving it. But we do not have any responsibility to compulsorily discipline our relative's child. We do not approve of our anger upon our relative's child. So, we do not express our anger upon the relative child. We do not need to manage our psychological emotions. We do not need to set aside any of our emotions, considering them as unnecessary. But we are responsible for all our external actions. All of us have the responsibility to manage them. It will only be right to execute our external actions abiding by the moral values and justice. For that, we need to apply our intellect in the right way. If required, we must use our psychological emotions to help our intellect. One of our listeners had a problem and reported to me. Your approach is very helpful to me. My mind became calm after I accepted that. I thought that all my problems had come to an end. But today I got into a new problem. I have left my home and come out to attend a business meeting. The place where the meeting is scheduled is about 30 kilometers away from my home. I need to be there in the meeting within half an hour. But I have been waiting for a bus for the past 1.5 hours. The regularly scheduled buses did not turn up so far. I am so agitated and tense, thinking that I may not be able to attend the meeting. Why am I so agitated now? Have I not understood your approach and concepts properly? Can my mind that was calm so far be engulfed in tension like this? My answer for his query was like this. You are on your way to an important work. Your journey is disturbed. Because of that, you become agitated. Anyone who is in the situation that you are in will be under tension only. There is nothing wrong to feel agitated. It is this tension that has come about like a stimulant to help you complete your action successfully. Only with the help of such a stimulant, you can successfully complete your journey. You can make an alternate arrangement by hiring a vehicle and reach the meeting place. In the absence of this tension, you may not even be able to complete your action successfully. There is nothing wrong in your getting agitated for that. But to get agitated against your agitation is quite wrong. We may make use of all our psychological emotions to deal with our external actions. We may call our inner psychological world as a false and shadowy world, but our external world cannot be called so. We can't call our external world as false. The outer physical world that we see and experience is real. There we need to carry out all our actions in an orderly manner. All that we need to do and achieve exists in the outer world. There is nothing wrong in giving importance to the outer physical world within the scope of ethics and justice. It is wrong to give importance to the psychological emotions in order to keep the mind peaceful and joyful. It is wrong to set right the psychological world. What is the problem of that person who was waiting for a bus for a long time? What sort of solution does he expect? If he asks how to reach the meeting place, then his entire problem is associated with the external world. We may give relevant advices to him regarding how to reach the meeting place, but he did not expect any such advice from us. His expectation was all about the inner psychological world. When he asks the questions, why did I get agitated? How can tension disturb my peace of mind? His expectation is all about streamlining and transforming his inner psychological emotions. Instead of directing his intellect towards the external action, he has directed it towards his inner emotions. Or intellect, instead of managing the actions successfully, takes the responsibility of how to manage the psychological emotions. How do we handle our intellect? When our intellect, instead of managing the external activities, tries to manage our psychological emotions, then we cannot treat our intellect as intellect at all. It can be treated as intellect until it involves the external physical actions. Its boundary ends with the external actions. In the event of the intellect crossing its boundaries and stepping into the inner world, it loses the qualification of being the intellect. As it loses its qualification of being the intellect, what should we call that as? If our intellect takes the responsibility of regulating our psychological emotions, then we should consider our intellect also as one of our emotions. We call our psychological emotions as mind. In the way we call our intelligence as intellect. Intellect has no business in regulating the psychological emotions of our mind. The job of the intellect is to handle only the external activities. If our intellect takes the responsibility of regulating the psychological emotions of our mind also, then it cannot be called as intellect. It needs to be considered as mind only. If intellect is considered as the mind, then there is no such thing called intellect exists. Only the mind exists. If intellect is considered as only an emotion, then emotion only exists there. Intellect does not. Only our intellect has responsibility. Emotions do not. Only intelligence has responsibility, not the mind. Inner psychological world belongs only to the mind. It belongs only to emotions. So, the inner psychological world should be free from all responsibilities. It should exist only with freedom. It should be free of any restrictions. It should not have any goals. If our inner psychological world should be free from responsibilities and restrictions and should have only freedom, then there should not be intellect or intelligence. Or if intellect or intelligence exists in our inner psychological world, then it should not have any goals. Such intellect should not have any future resort. There should not be any measurements for the actions of our mind or the emotions. There should not be any expectation for any logic and discipline. It may rain all of a sudden. Suddenly there may be a storm. We cannot question the reason behind that. Similarly, we should consider our inner psychological world as a natural one. In the epics, there is a narration about an incident. There is a sage by name Kagabujanda who lives as an immortal being. His ancestors have passed away. All his heirs too have passed away. Even the universe has met with so many deluges. The gods too have dissolved and disappeared and reappeared again and again. But the sage Kagabujanda remains forever as an immortal without any change. Everyone is amazed on why he is like this. Sage Narada goes to him and asks, "Everything in this universe appears and disappears. Anything that is created has to disappear. Like anyone else, you too are born to your parents. When everything has disappeared, how do you remain as an immortal?" Sage Kagabujanda replies with a smile, "It happens to be so. How can the nature be explained? It has to be accepted as it is. Only when all our inner psychological emotions are accepted as they are, without questioning them, our mind and intellect merge themselves. Intellect and emotions merge themselves. When will a student be praised as a good student? When a student understands his subjects and excels by demonstrating that in the exams, he is exemplified as a best student to his fellow students. When will a teacher be praised as a good teacher? When the teacher possesses an excellent understanding of the subjects and is able to teach the subjects without doubts in a way that students can understand well, then the teacher can be exemplified as the best teacher. When do we call a person as a good human being? When one acts with a humanitarian concern in all situations to the extent of being exemplified for that quality, then we would call him a good human being. Like this, we attach traits and merits to everything. On this basis, how to define a lunatic person by the traits as a good lunatic? There is no specific rules and discipline for a lunatic person. The lunatic person may act in whatever way he wants, with sense or without sense. There is one incident. Following the orders passed by the government to inspect and submit a report on all the mental asylums in the district, a district collector was carrying out inspection in one of the asylums. A young person attracted the attention of the collector. The collector interrogated that person. He said, "My neighbor girl and I were in love with each other. Our parents did not accept our love. Next week, they are going to get my girlfriend married to someone else by compulsion. As both our parents suspected that I may create some trouble, they have detained me here, saying that I am lunatic." The patient's narration sounded very genuine to the collector. The collector sent a word to the doctor to meet him. The doctor was not at the hospital at that time. So, the collector issued an order for the doctor to come and meet him urgently in his office once he comes back. When the collector was getting ready to leave the hospital, that young person approached him to offer his gratitude. He said to the collector, "Thank you very much for your help, sir. Please do not forget me." As he was saying this to the collector, he gave a big punch on the collector's face. He started giving explanation for this to the collector. "Don't mistake me, sir. I punched on your face only because I wanted you to remember me. There is no other reason. Can we define how a lunatic person should act? A lunatic person can act in any way he wants. As far as the inner world, the mind, psychological emotions is concerned, it may act in any way it wants. Whatever restrictions or definitions we may set on how the mind should act are all wrong. If such an error is committed, who commits it? Which part of us commits this error? If at all we commit an error like this, it is only our intellect that commits the error. Can our intellect commit such an error? As far as our inner psychological world is concerned, we have been considering our intellect as an emotion and mind, and it is not considered as intellect at all. Therefore, as far as our inner psychological world is concerned, our intellect has the right to commit this error. It is enough if we consider that all the mistakes that we commit are natural. The right way to understand the inner psychological world is to treat it as natural, to ignore whatever happens inside and to give full freedom to it. Only by ignoring our inner psychological world completely can we act upon the outer world with utmost responsibility. Let us look at an example. Let us assume that you are coming to my house after 2 days of hectic journey, tired. As my house is situated far away from the city and isolated from the city, you have reached my house with great difficulty. Let us say that when you are arriving at my doorsteps, I am locking my door in order to go out. I am asking you to stay in my house and I am leaving. As it may take some time for me to return home, it may even get delayed. But you have come after a tiresome journey. What you need now is rest. If the door is locked from inside, then you will have to wake up and open the door for me. Therefore, I am locking the door from outside and taking the key with me. Now, you can take rest peacefully. Even if I return home late, you don't have to open the door for me. As I have the key with me, the door can be opened from outside. After seeing me off, you are entering the bedroom. There, you see a big black cobra upon the bed. What will you do now? Had the door not been locked from outside, your first action would be to escape from the house. But here it is not possible as the door is locked from outside. As it is an isolated house, you cannot even call anyone for help. Now, what will you do? Basically, you are not courageous enough to beat the snake. So far, you've not seen a snake in your life except in movies and pictures. This is the first time you encounter a snake. Now, what will you do? You can't fight the snake. At the same time, you need to rescue yourself from the snake. What will you do now? You must face the snake now. In the event of an opportunity to escape from the place, we would not choose the option of dealing with the snake. Only when there is absolutely no chance to escape will the thought of dealing with the snake arise. Only when we come to a relaxed state will we realize that the snake is also afraid of you the same way you are. As we gradually become relaxed, the snake also relaxes. Now, there appears to be a sort of unspoken deal struck between the snake and us. We start to understand that the cobra does not do anything to us on its own. Similarly, the cobra also gets a similar understanding that we will not do any harm. It may be difficult for us to get out of the house as the door is locked from outside. Only if the door is open from outside can we come out of the house. But it is very easy for the snake to go out of the room through an open window. So, it leaves the room easily. Only when we ignore our inner psychological world completely will we become eligible to take charge of our outer physical actions. As long as we try to regulate our psychological emotions, all our energy is scattered apart. Without any struggle in our inner psychological world, when we involve only in the outer physical world, our entire capability is directed towards handling the external activities efficiently. Because of this, both the inner world and the outer world are regulated. By remaining inactive, our inner psychological world is refined. Sensible thinking and efficient performance brings refinement in all our outer physical activities. Outer physical world is not a mirage. It is very much real. The earth and sky are real. Human beings and our life are real. The life in which we participate is real. It would be excellent to live our life intelligently. Each stage of our life should have the contribution of our intellect. It is a duty of all of us to establish a good life, a good environment, and a good society with the help of our intellect. Mind should lead our inner psychological life. Intellect should lead our outer physical life.
Chapter 6. Who am I? The question, who am I, belongs only to the spiritual world. If we ask, who are you, to a stranger who has come to our house, it is a meaningful question. Only when asked will he tell us about him. Instead of asking him who he is, if we ask him, who am I, what will happen? He will start staring at us up and down saying, what happened to you? The question, who am I, has to be asked and understood by ourselves. Why should we be asking this question ourselves? What is the benefit of asking like this? What will be the loss if we do not ask? During a question and answer session, disciples of Ramana Maharishi share their problems to him, seeking solutions. In a single answer, he gives them the solution. You ask yourself this question, who am I, and understand yourself. That is the solution. You need to understand that you are the Atma. You need to attain Atma Sakshatkar, direct consciousness of the self. That is the real solution. You are assuming that you are the physical body. As long as you consider yourself as the body, all your physical problems will appear to be your own problems. Or you are thinking yourself as the mind. As long as you consider yourself as the mind, all the problems of your mind will appear to be your problems. But your real self is neither your body nor your mind. Your real self is the Atma. Atma does not have either birth or death. Atma does not know pleasure or pain. You should realize that you are the Atma. You need to attain the Atma Sakshatkar, self-realization. Only when you realize that you are the Atma will you be able to get rid of all the sufferings. Now, the only way is to realize the Atma. But how to know the Atma? We know that we have the body. We know the functioning of our mind. But do we know that there exists something called Atma? Then how to know the Atma? I see a tree. I perceive it through my eyes. I hear the musical sound of a bird. I perceive this through my ears. Through our sense organs, we connect ourselves with the external world and perceive them this way. Like this, can we perceive the Atma through our sense organs? The Shastras and the enlightened masters who introduce the Atma to us say that Atma can't be perceived through our sense organs. In our mind, we experience various emotions such as joy, sorrow, and fear. We experience all these emotions only through our mind. Like this, can we experience and realize the Atma through our mind? Shastras and scriptures say that we cannot realize the Atma through our mind either. If we have to know something, we know either through our sense organs or through our mind. Apart from these, do we have any other tool or method to realize the Atma? No, barring those, we do not have anything else. If we cannot know through these tools and methods, then how can we perceive the Atma? If we ask these questions to the Shastras which introduce the Atma, what would they say? Will the Shastras put on ignorance? Shastras teaches the approach of how to know and understand the Atma. What do they say? Shastras, without any hesitation, very clearly declare no Atma through Atma itself. Thus said the Shastras. Atma alone can know Atma. They said like this. We raise the question on how to know the Atma without even knowing that there is something called Atma. Even we have not asked that ourselves. When we question on how to get rid of our sufferings and problems, Shastras come forward to say that if you know that your real self is Atma, then all your problems will be resolved. Fine. When a question is put forth to the Shastras on how to know the Atma, is it right on their part to answer like this? We are asking the Shastras without having any knowledge on the existence of something called Atma. Now, what to do if Shastras respond like this? How to know about the Atma through the Atma? Suppose one of our family members who went out has not returned home. We have searched for him in all the familiar places we know, but we could not find him. Finally, we go to the police station and lodge a complaint. The police officer who receives the complaint asks us, does anyone know where that person went last? We reply to the police officer that only one person alone knows about it. The officer anxiously asks us, who's that person? He himself is the missed person. We reply thus. Do we need to consider the concepts of Shastras also in a similar way? Shastras don't declare anything humorously like this. All the concepts and quotes of Shastras are pramanas, valid truth and unquestionable declarations. Then, what do the Shastras intend to convey? One of the disciples of Ramana Maharishi seeks an explanation. Put forward, Swami, you are declaring that attaining Atma Sakshatkar, self-realization, is the only solution for all the problems. What is Atma Sakshatkar, self-realization? What is meant by realizing the Atma through Sakshatkar, direct consciousness? Should Atma be perceived as Pratyaksha Bhava, direct perception through our senses? Is it possible to know Atma as Pratyaksha Bhava, direct perception through our senses? The word Aksha denotes Indriyas, the sense organs. Pratyaksha Bhava is witnessing the Atma through our sense organs. When someone asks, is it possible to experience the Atma directly through our sense organs? The question forces Ramana Maharishi to think for a while. Then he replies, through the Indriyas, sense organs, it is not possible to know the Atma. In fact, there is nothing called Atma Sakshatkar that exists. Atma Sakshatkar and Atma Darshan are mere words. There is no such thing in the name of Atma Sakshatkar or Atma Darshan exists. But it is our convention to say like this. What we really mean as Atma Sakshatkar is to attain freedom from ignorance. So, what we need to attain is destruction of ignorance and not Atma Sakshatkar. He says like this. Now, how do we approach the question, who am I? Do we need to realize and understand who am I or not? Does something called Atma exist or not? we have a story to explain the existence of Atma. It is narrated as if it has happened in olden days. A traveler goes abroad. He stays in an inn there. Many travelers like him are also staying there. But this traveler is remaining awake while others are sleeping. The manager of the inn observes him with concern and inquires, "Don't you get sleep, sir?" The traveler comes up with a strange reason. "When I was a boy, I had been to a festival with my parents. I was lost in the crowd. I struggled a lot to find my parents. My parents too struggled to find me. From that day onwards, whenever I see a crowd, I start panicking. Here too, there is a huge crowd of travelers that are sleeping. My fear is that if I fall asleep amongst the crowd, I may get loose once again. So, I am awake trying not to sleep." The traveler explained about his situation. The manager assures him that he would help him in not getting lost in the crowd. So, he ties a red color ribbon around his leg. He encourages the traveler by saying, "Now, there is no possibility of you to get lost in this crowd. Even if you get lost in the crowd, you can identify yourself with this ribbon. So, you can sleep in any crowd, anywhere without fear." The traveler also felt convinced and fell asleep in that crowd. After confirming that the traveler is in deep sleep, the manager untied the red ribbon from the traveler's leg and tied it to the leg of another traveler who was sleeping next to him. The traveler woke up early in the morning and looked at his leg. There was no ribbon on his leg. He found the ribbon tied to the leg of another traveler who was sleeping next to him. Not knowing what to do, he was just sitting in his bed. The manager saw the traveler in deep thoughts, approached him and asked, "You seem to be in deep thoughts. What are you thinking about? Have you got lost once again?" The traveler calmly replied, "I have not got lost. I am safe here. It was only out of fear of getting lost in the crowd that I hesitated to sleep. It was fortunate that you came for my help. You smartly tied the ribbon on one of my legs so that I can easily identify myself in any crowd. Now, it is obvious that the person who is with the ribbon tied in his legs is me. Whoever has the ribbon tied on his leg is myself. There is no doubt about it. I am that person who is sleeping with the ribbon. With your help, I ensured myself that I did not get lost in the crowd. But still I am confused." "What is the confusion?" the manager asked. The traveler explained his confusion. "I understand that the person who is sleeping with the ribbon in his leg is none other than myself. There is no confusion here. But who is this person who is speaking to you now without the ribbon?" Are we trapped in a situation similar to this? When we ask what is our real form, true state, we are told that our real form is Atma. It is also told to us that we will not be able to know our Atma and only the Atma can know itself. In fact, we are always aware of ourselves. If so, who is that I that is aware of who I am? We are aware of our presence through our sense organs. But they say that we cannot know our Atma through our sense organs. If so, who is this I that is known directly through our sense organs? We have the feeling continuously that I exist. Is there any moment when we do not have this feeling of existence? Whenever we are awake, we have this consciousness of existence. Do we have this consciousness when we are asleep? No, we do not. In case I have dreams in my sleep, do we have this consciousness of existence in our dreams? Yes, we do. only during a deep dreamless sleep we are not aware of the existence of ourselves. Similarly, during meditation and deep samadhi state where there are no thoughts, this feeling of existence does not exist. Whenever we have thoughts, we have this consciousness of existence, I consciousness. When we are awake, we have the function of thought. While we are dreaming, we have the function of some kind of memorable thought. The memorable thought that happens during our sleep is called as dream. Whether we are awake or asleep, the memorable thought should exist there. If thought exists, then there will be the existence of I consciousness. If there is no thought, then there would not be any conscious existence. The presence of our thought is the reason for the existence of consciousness. When there are no thoughts, the presence of I consciousness would disappear. Our thought is nothing but this I consciousness. What is this thought and what is our thinking? How does it function? All of our experiences are stored in the form of memories in our mind. The ripples of thoughts that are developed from our memories are called thoughts. We are able to understand everything in this world through our thought only. When we walk on the road, we hear a sound. With the help of our thought, we classify and understand that as of the horn of a car. Our thought functions as our intellect and explains everything to us. This thought explains each and everything by giving a name and property to it. It distinguishes, classifies, and explains everything and helps us to identify a human as a human, a tree as a tree, and an animal as an animal. Let us assume that there is a blackboard. If we write something with a black ink, will it be visible? The board is black in color. The ink is also black. If both are black, we cannot read the letters and understand them. Now, we write with a white chalk piece on that blackboard. Will it be visible? Yes, the letters will be clearly visible. Only if we can distinguish the letters from the blackboard will the letters be clearly visible. Only by distinguishing each and every object we can understand them individually. Our thought alone distinguishes everything as a separate and individual object. Then only we can understand an object as object. As we understand a tree as a tree, a flower as a flower, we also understand ourselves as I. When we look at a tree, we understand that it is a tree. We don't associate a man with a tree. We understand the man and the tree separately. But this I consciousness is interconnected with all the objects. What is this connection? We see our mother. When we look at her, we recognize her as our mother. At the same time, we also recognize us as her son or daughter. When we see our child, we recognize him or her as our child. At the same time, we also recognize us as its mother or father. We see each and every object as the object that is seen. We understand ourselves as the one who sees them. If we analyze any part of our thought process, it will have the subject, seer, I consciousness along with the object that is seen. When we see a tree as the object, there would be the seer as the subject. The object that is seen would be apparently visible. The seer, I consciousness would be there, but the I would not be as prominent as the objects that is seen. In educational institutions, examinations would be conducted for the students and evaluation would be done. The scores would be announced like this: subject and score. Mathematics 90, Science 80, Social Science 70. The scores 90, 80, 70 do not indicate its absolute value. Here, 90 means 90 out of 100, 80 means 80 out of 100, 70 means 70 out of 100. Like this, the scores always indirectly indicate the number 100 as the base value. Like this, whatever object that we see also creates a subject consciousness, the seer of the object. The I is nothing but that subject consciousness. The seer I, who sees, and the object that is seen are always connected. They always appear together. No object exists without this consciousness of I. Object that is seen is apparently visible. The seer I, who sees, remains as the consciousness, as the subject. Only if we distinguish like this and understand can we function properly. Let us assume that food has been served on the table. Only if we distinguish ourselves from the food, we can relate with the food and eat it. If we can't distinguish between the food and ourselves, we can't relate the food and eat it. Only if we distinguish us from the objects that we see and relate with, can we perform external activities properly. You consider a person as your friend. I see the same person as my enemy. He is a friend to you, but an enemy to me. When you see him as a friend, you consider yourself as the one who is in deep friendship with him. When I see him as an enemy, I consider myself as the one who is filled with hatred. Discrimination of this kind is very much required to carry out our worldly activities. Let us assume that someone cheated me and took money from me. Whenever I see him again, I see him as the one who has cheated me. I consider myself as the one who has been deceived by him. Is it correct to see like this? This is how it should be dealt with. Only by distinguishing ourselves from him can we decide what kind of relationship we can have with him. Thereby, we can safeguard ourselves from getting cheated by him again. We can deal him with caution. Like this, only by distinguishing ourselves from others, we can involve in our day-to-day activities. Our thoughts do not remain as a still photograph or a static drawing. They come about continuously like ripples of waves each moment. All the thoughts that come by each moment anew are like the continuous smoke that comes out of an incense stick anew each moment. We have seen that every thought consists of two parts, the object that is seen and the seer, one who is seeing it. The seer, one who is seeing, exists as a part in each thought. The object that is seen also is a part in it. So, a thought is nothing but these two parts put together. The first part is I who see the tree, and the second, the tree that is seen by me. Among these two parts, which one came about first and which one the second? In my thought, does the experience of I occur first, or does the experience of seeing the tree occur first? In fact, there is no separate experience as I, nor is there any separate experience as seeing a tree. Only the experience I see a tree occurs that has both the parts in it. But we assume as if this consciousness of I exists permanently and it individually experiences and understands tree, humans, animals, etc. In fact, there is no separate entity of I exist. This I exists along with an experience of an object. We may think that there is an individual state of I consciousness without the connection of any object. But it is not so. Only the experiencer of an experience alone can exist. Each moment there is some kind of experience or the other. So, the consciousness of the experiencer also constantly remains. Does the object exist depending upon the experiencer? Or does the experiencer exist depending upon the object? Since the object exists depending upon the experiencer will always exist without any change. But the experiencer is changing always. The one who sees a flower changes at the next moment to one who sees a tree. Depending upon the object that is seen, the seer also changes. Depending upon the object that is seen, he becomes the seer of the object. Depending on the object that is experienced, he becomes the experiencer. Between the object that is experienced and the experiencer alone reflects the quality of the object. The experiencer is reflected as an aspect of the experience. In English language, grammatically, I is used as the subject for first person. You is used as the object for the second person. Next, it is used as the object for third person. But practically, the objects you and it remains as the first stage experience. The one who appears to be the experiencer remains as the second stage experience. The object is the reason for the experiencer. Only an object creates the subject. When we have seen a tree or a flower, we take us to be the experiencer of a tree or a flower. Let us assume in the place of a flower or a tree, we look at ourselves. I am looking at myself. Now, what is the object that is experienced? Who is the experiencer? Whether we look at ourselves or an object, whatever we see, they are all mere experiences of the object. We know only our experience. Whether we know a tree or ourselves, it is only an experience of knowing an object. The experiencer is created out of the experience. Experiencing the consciousness of I is also the experience of the experiencer. The consciousness of I is expressed as an expression of the experiencer. All these are the functions of our thought. Let us say that we are walking on the road. There does arise a need for us to cross the road. But lot of vehicles are moving on the road. Only if we distinguish ourselves from the vehicles can we cross the road. Since we apply the same approach against us, we land into psychological problems. What is that action against us? In our mind, we come across various emotions such as joy, sorrow, fear, anger. They become our psychological experiences. All these experiences include an experiencer in it. The one who is happy, the one who is sad, the one who is in fear, the one who is angry. Like this, the experiencer always exists along with the emotions. When we are walking on the road, we need to keep us away from the vehicle that comes in front of us. It would be proper to distinguish ourselves from the vehicle and act accordingly. Similarly, will it be right if we try to detach ourselves from our emotions like fear and sorrow? When we look at a vehicle, we understand that it is a vehicle and decide to move away from the vehicle. They both happen in our mind. They happen through our thoughts. Though such an understanding happens in our mind, we give way to the vehicle using our physical body. It will not be enough if we just imagine in our mind that we are giving way to the vehicle. We should move our body also. We need to perform this action to set things right. Let us assume that an object of our utmost liking gets destroyed. We will not be able to get it back. There is no action to be carried out in this regard. But in our mind, grief over this loss permanently exists. The grief exists in us as a psychological experience. We want to get rid of this grief. The grief exists in our mind only. The thought of getting rid of this grief also exists in our mind only. It was the mind that noted the vehicle. It is the same mind in which the thought of going away from the vehicle also exists. Using this thought, we physically moved away from the vehicle, which was noted by our mind. Here, it is the mind that indicates the grief to us. The thought of getting rid of the grief is also in our mind only. What do we do using the thought of getting rid of the grief? That we should keep away from the vehicle does not mean that we keep away from our mind. It means that we keep our body away from the vehicle. But to get rid of the distress, to keep us away from distress, is not a physical action. It indicates that the mind has to get rid of the mind itself. It denotes that the mind is the one that should get rid of the distress. Distress is understood as a psychological experience of the experiencer. Fear is understood as a psychological experience of the experiencer of fear. In truth, grief and the experiencer of the grief are one and the same. Fear and the experiencer of the fear are one and the same. Both can't be separated. But we always think that they are two different things. We divide that by thinking in two different ways. I am afraid, I am sad. As a result, we struggle to get rid of our grief or fear. As far as our inner psychological world is concerned, there is no division such as the experience and the experiencer. Only when the experiencer wants to get rid of the experience, it appears as if there is division and struggle. We drive a car on the road. There is a vehicle coming in the opposite direction. We should give way to that vehicle. The other vehicle should give way to our vehicle. If we both do not give way for each other, what will happen? Both the vehicles will stop facing each other. There will be traffic jam and all movements will be paralyzed. Entire traffic will come to a halt. It will be problematic for us as well as others. Similarly, if the experiencer of distress does not come out of his distress, what will happen? If the experiencer of fear does not come out of his fear, what will happen? Will the mind come to a halt? The object in the outer physical world is different from the image that we have in our mind. Whatever exists in the outer world is real and physical in nature. Whatever exists in our inner psychological world is only a shadow. There is a need for the real and physical objects to move away and give way for other physical objects. There is no need for the shadow to move away and give way for other shadows. Shadows are not physical in nature. They appear and disappear. All thoughts and the psychological experiences that are created by the thoughts are mere shadows. If we keep an object on a table, it remains there. Similarly, will our emotions and thoughts also remain forever? They all will disappear on their own the same way they appeared. How long will it take for our emotions and thoughts to appear and disappear? Will they take few days, few hours, few minutes, or within few seconds will they disappear? What is the lifespan of these thoughts and psychological emotions? Is it in days, hours, minutes or seconds? The scientists who analyze this report that 60 thoughts come by per second. Per second, we will have about 60 emotions. Since our thoughts appear continuously one over the other, it creates an impression that the same thought or emotion stays for a longer period. All the emotions of our mind free themselves automatically. There is no state such as I need to get rid of my sorrow. I need to get rid of my fear. No thought or emotion stays more than a second. Because of our effort to regulate the thoughts and the emotions, they get renewed. The experiencer and the experience are all momentary expressions only. But we combine our thoughts and emotions with our memory. Because we see like this combination creates an impression that the experiencer, consciousness of I, remains for a long time. It also creates an illusion that experiences like joy and suffering happen to a permanent experiencer. In fact, the I consciousness that is created due to the flow of momentary thoughts is also a momentary one. Just like our thoughts that appear each moment afresh and anew, the consciousness of I also appears each moment afresh and anew. The flame of candle appears as if it glows continuously, but the flame is fresh and new every moment. The light of an electric bulb looks as if it glows continuously, but in fact, the light flickers more than 100 times in a second. As far as our inner psychological world is concerned, the aspect of I doesn't exist as a constant factor. All experiences are transient. Similarly, the experiencer who experiences is also temporary in nature. Experiencer is not an individual. It is also an experience only. The experience looks as if it is the experiencer. Only the experience exists. Nobody as an experiencer exists. The underlying state of awareness, which remains as the basis for all these temporary experiences, is called Atma. Does a basic awareness like that exist? Is it that basic awareness that is called as Atma? Is that said to be the real I? We communicate with various people and various objects. Which is the real one among all that we connect with? Which is that real one that qualifies as the most real one among all others? We have heard about elephant and we have seen it in movies also. Let us assume that we have not seen it in real life. One day we get a chance to see an elephant directly. Only when you see the elephant in person, it becomes a reality for you. We return home after seeing the elephant. Now, the elephant is not there. The elephant doesn't appear to our eyes. Let us say we hear about a tasty fruit. Only when we taste it, the fruit becomes a reality for us. The taste becomes a reality for us. Once we complete eating the fruit, the taste disappears. Whatever we sense through our sense organs only becomes a reality for us. Only when we experience through our sense organs, we are aware of the reality. We touch fire with our hands. When heat burns the hand, we sense the heat. We touch the ice cubes with our hands. When our hand freezes, we are aware of the coldness. Where does the sensation of heat exist? Is it in our hands or in the fire? Where does the sensation of coldness exist? Is it in our hands or in the ice cubes? Fire knows only how to emit heat, but it does not know how to sense it. Ice cubes know only how to emit the chillness, but it does not know how to sense it. Only our hand senses the heat and coldness. Our hand expresses the heat. It expresses the chillness too. What is the property of our hand, hot or cold? We can neither say that it is hot nor can we say that it is cold. But the sense of heat and chillness is expressed by our hands only. By nature, our hands are capable of knowing anything. It has the awareness. It is this awareness that exists as a basis for everything. It is this awareness that is the most real in all that we have known. This awareness expresses all the emotions. This awareness is called as prajna. How does this awareness exist? What is its nature? All of us are aware of our body. Does it exist with consciousness or not? If such a question is asked, what would be our answer? Let us assume that all of a sudden we become unwell. Due to fever, our whole body is afflicted with temperature and is painful. Now we feel our whole body as heat and pain. As we have taken some medicines, our fever and pain subsides gradually and disappears. Now, are we aware of our body? Does it exist with consciousness? We may say that we know the existence of this body. We may even say that our body has consciousness. We have many internal organs and they keep functioning also. Do we sense their presence and their functioning? Let us leave our internal organs. Let us take our hands and legs that are visible. We have 10 fingers in our hands and 10 toes in our legs. They all exist with consciousness. Can we feel the fingers one by one? Try to feel them. No one can feel them. Why? Our body has the consciousness, but it exists without expressing its existence. The nature of the prajna, awareness, is like that. Only when it consciously revealed as physical sensation or psychological emotion, we can sense it. If we touch a part of our body gently, we can sense and be aware of only the revealed expression. We cannot sense this state of awareness that is the source of the revealed expression. Even if we want to feel our fingertip, unless we focus on it and create a slight vibration, we cannot feel that. This prajna awareness is revealed as emotions. We cannot experience the awareness, but we can experience the revealed emotions which are called as consciousness. We can only experience the expressed consciousness. We cannot feel the awareness which is the reason behind this expression. It is this awareness that reveals itself through the body as physical consciousness and through the mind as psychological consciousness. We can only become aware of the expressed emotions. Can we know the awareness which is the source of all the revealed consciousness? What is the necessity for the awareness to know about itself? Even though our underlying source is awareness, all our actions are based on the revealed consciousness. Though we experience and are aware of ourselves as I, this also comes under the expressed consciousness. This I consciousness does not belong to the awareness, which is the common cause for all the expressed emotions in total. The awareness doesn't express anything specific about itself. It does not describe itself as the I consciousness. Once, one of the participants of our enlightenment workshop asked a question. When I participate in an event like this, I experience complete serenity. My mind becomes very light. But when I return home, my mind gets entangled as it used to be. All unwanted emotions come back. My mind becomes heavy and agitated. Why is it so? Why does the serene mood cease to exist? It is not possible to stay in this kind of environment always, to maintain this peace of mind. Here, how should I handle this problem? He expressed his problems, narrating his experiences. What do we need to do here? Do we need to stay in this type of positive, conducive environment forever to maintain peace of mind? Let us assume that we have a huge mirror in our drawing room. The mirror reflects the image of whoever enters the room. The mirror does not say, since he is the owner of this house, I shall reflect his image beautifully and clearly. Barring him, I will not reflect the image of any other person so beautifully. The mirror reflects all the objects that are placed in front of it as it is. It is the property of the mirror. If the mirror does not reflect like this, then it is not a real mirror. Our mind is also like that. It is proper only when our mind expresses emotions according to the situations that we are in. Let us assume that someone gets angry with us and scolds us. In that situation, what kind of emotions will get expressed in us? In that situation, we express hatred, anger, or sorrow on him. If someone praises us and expresses his gratitude for the timely help that he received from us, what would be our emotional expression in that situation? We would express either happiness or love towards him. It is quite natural to undergo pleasant emotions in a favorable situation and unwanted emotions in a situation that we do not like. Seeking exception in these scenarios is against nature. Expecting that I should feel happy when I am in distress is against the nature. When someone is sharing his distress with us by crying, what do? Do we express our happiness to him? Similarly, to a mirror that reflects the objects that is placed in front of it, our mind also expresses emotions of joy and sorrow in accordance with the joyful or sad events that it encounters. This is the nature of the mind. Will the mirror become dirty just because it reflects a dirty image? Our mind doesn't get polluted just because it reflects sorrowful events. Then, where does the problem exist? If there is nothing wrong with the reflection, then there is no fault with the mirror too. It reflects as it is. If there is nothing wrong with the mirror, then where does the problem exist? We do not consider the nature of reflection as problem. Only the reflected emotions are considered as the problem. We like few emotions. We dislike few other emotions. We expect few emotions to stay for a while. We want to get rid of few other emotions at once. Are these kinds of choices associated with the reflective quality of the mirror or with the reflected images of the mirror? We do not wish to regulate the reflective nature of the mirror, expecting that it should not reflect any unwanted images. Our desire to manage our emotions is all related to the images that are reflected in the mirror. Our problem is not with the reflection. The problem is with the reflected image. How should be the reflected images? Let us assume that you are standing in front of a mirror and your image is reflected in the mirror. Once you move away, your friend stands in front of the mirror. Now, your friend's image is reflected in the mirror. What did happen to your image which was reflected earlier? For the mirror to reflect fresh and new images, all the reflected images support by giving way to the new images. None of reflected images are adamant enough to stay permanently. Once we move away from the mirror, our image that is reflected in the mirror also must go away. That would be the proper and natural functioning of the mirror. When we struggle to hold on to few emotions and get rid of few other emotions, only unwanted problems are created within the boundary of our emotions. If we try to discard our image from the mirror, persistently standing in front of it, it will not help. It would only help our image to stay in the mirror forever. When we move away from the mirror, our reflected image also moves away. We do not need to do anything to move the image also. On the contrary, if we insist, no, I have a necessity to move my image out of the mirror. Until my image moves away from the mirror, I won't move away from this place. Then the image will not move either. Instead, it would only help the mirror to retain the image there. The moment we resign from our responsibility of regulating our emotions, all our emotions disappear on their own. As all the reflected images disappear from the mirror on their own, it is only natural and proper for our emotions too to disappear automatically. What do we need to do? We need to understand that we do not need to do anything to regulate our emotions. This understanding alone is sufficient. Let us assume that we comb our hair in front of a mirror. We see our reflection in it. We stand outside the mirror. Our image is reflected inside the mirror. In this scenario, who is this I? Who are you? Is this I a shadow? Or is it the real one which stands outside? Among these, which one is the real I? We only see our reflected shadow image, but not the real I who is standing outside the mirror. If we say, I sense my existence, then it means that I recognize me as an object which is seen. The I who is sensed is only a shadow image that is created by our memories. It is only a shadow reflected in the mirror. The thing which causes the shadow exists outside the mirror. We know only of the image that is reflected in the mirror. Do we need to resurrect the I who stays as a shadow image in the mirror? Is it that I which needs to be liberated? In fact, all the shadows exist in liberated state. We can catch hold of a real object. Can we catch hold of the shadow? It is sufficient if we understand that the aspect of I is only a shadow. In that state, we will also realize that all our efforts regarding the aspect of I are unnecessary. We buy a house paying its price. By paying the price of a house, do we buy a photo of the house? Understanding the self means understanding that the I is only a shadow. So, we need not pay any price to get away from the shadow of I. Need not pay any price in the name of effort. Our emotions, which are mere shadows, are fresh and new each moment. They flow like a river. They are in liberated state.
Chapter 7. Liberation of the Masters. We have already seen how Buddha attained liberation, mukti. He attempted many meditative practices to attain the liberation. Because of those meditative practices, he underwent rare ecstatic experiences. But he could not sustain those experiences forever, as they were gone after some time. These experiences did not fetch him the solution that he was seeking. Shattered by this, he helplessly sat under a tree. What can he do with a shattered mind? Can one tie with a broken rope? He set his mind free as it wanted. It started functioning freely on its own. So far, one part of his mind had been struggling to regulate the total mind. Once it recognized its inability, that part of the mind abandoned its attempt. In that abandoned state, the mind transformed itself into something that had given up an attempt to swim against the current of the river. What will happen to us if we do not swim against the current of the river? Will the current stop as it is? Regardless of whether we swim or not, the river will continue to flow. When we stop swimming against the current, in that state, the river will merge with us in its flow. The moment we stop battling with the flow of the mind, we merge into the flow of our mind. As long as we try to regulate our mind and try to bring it under our control, our mind becomes a battlefield. Bondage is nothing but clinging on to the mind. Allowing our mind to flow is freedom. Even though we set our mind free by not clinging on to it, it does not stop functioning. In the event of the mind being let free, it functions with freedom. It functions on its own. It functions wholeheartedly without one part of the mind trying to control the other part. The total mind flows in one direction without any hesitation. This free flow of our mind is the real freedom. This freedom is nothing but the liberation. To attain this freedom of mind, liberation, should we be scholars of Shastras? Should we be a yogi practicing to regulate the rhythm of breathing by following chanting and meditative practices? Nothing of this sort is required. The natural state of our mind itself is a free flow state. Only when we think of managing that state, we obstruct its free flow nature. Ramana Maharishi was a young boy who was hardly 16 years old when he attained this state. In that young age, he had not learned any philosophies laid out in the Shastras. He had not been used to any yoga or meditative practices. But he attained the liberation that was required. How? All of a sudden, one day, he started feeling the fear of death. He did not know how to handle that fear, nor did he want to run away from that fear. Then, what did he do? He accepted that fear of death as it is. He granted total permission to his mind wholeheartedly to let things happen the way things happen during death. What happened to him because of this? Fear of death was only in his mind. The mind that experienced the fear of death did not try to escape from that fear. There existed a total mind that was functioning as an embodiment of fear. There was no reaction in the mind against that fear. The mind that was functioning as an embodiment of fear now started functioning without any resistance. It functioned freely. It functioned in a state of total freedom. It functioned as freedom itself. He discovered the freely flowing freedom that enabled his mind to function on its own. He discovered freedom. He did not even understand what he discovered. Only later, when he had become familiar to the experts in Shastras, did he realize what had happened to him that day. On that day, he did not get the awareness of either the Atma or the Brahman. He did not understand anything towards the question, who am I? He found out that his mind was functioning on its own. He only found out that his mind was functioning with freedom. In his later part of life, only after his experience was stuffed into the shells called the philosophies of the Shastras, did many explanations like Atma, Atma Sakshatkar, who am I, etc. have developed. Freedom of mind evolved and acquired the name Atma Sakshatkar. Similar thing happened in the life of the modern saint J. Krishnamurti also. Theosophical Society adopted J. Krishnamurti and his brother Nitya. They predicted that J. Krishnamurti would become the teacher of the world and his brother Nitya would be his assistant. They prepared J.K. as messenger of the world. J. Krishnamurti was taught various types of meditation practices. He underwent various kinds of experiences like samadhi states and trances, leaving one's physical body, astral travel, and exposing as Sukshma body, etc. The Theosophical Society recognized him as the messenger of the world. He worked towards that, but he did not consider himself as a liberated one. He was waiting for the experience of liberation. He did not even know how that experience of liberation would be. He was waiting. The prophecy was that J. Krishnamurti would emerge as Bodhisattva Maitreya, liberated master for the world to prosper, and he would offer his teachings. It was also announced that his brother Nitya would be one among his 12 head messengers. When his brother Nitya was ill and bedridden, J. Krishnamurti took care of him. During that time, Madam Annie Besant invited J.K. to attend a function in Chennai. She invited J.K. by saying that the divine powers had confirmed that they would not allow Nitya to die and that Nitya would be alive to carry out the work. J. Krishnamurti also believed the divine message. On 9th November 1925, J. Krishnamurti started his journey from Naples in a ship. When the ship was crossing the Suez Canal, he received a telegram from his brother Nitya saying that his health condition had become worse. As J.K. had full faith in divine power, he continued his journey. But on that night itself, he received the message of Nitya's death. J. Krishnamurti was shaken to the core. The divine prophecy stating that Nitya would survive and he would help JK by being one of his prime disciples to carry out the future work, proved wrong. JK was shattered, thinking that everyone, including the gods, ditched him. He could not come out of the distress that the departure of his brother had caused. He did not attempt any samadhi state to get rid of his distress. Instead, he wholeheartedly accepted the situation that was beyond his control. He also accepted his grief that was beyond his control. What was the result? His mind, which had become an embodiment of grief and distress, started functioning without any resistance. His mind started functioning as a whole. He observed that his mind functioned in an entirely new dimension. Even then, he did not understand the scientific nature behind this new dimension of functioning, and he got the necessary transformation. Be it distress or despair that the mind brought in him, he did not offer any resistance to its functioning. Then what? His mind has to function with complete liberation. He understood this liberation in his own way and expressed and published thus in a language that he knew. Now I have understood how to cry. It is human nature. Life is really beautiful. There is happiness of truth. I understand with firm conviction that nature can never be disturbed by any external action. This eternal love is imperishable, unconquerable. Actually, he had not found out any such eternal and imperishable love. What he had found out was the liberation of his mind. He found out that the liberated mind was functioning in a different dimension. The natural and normal state of mind itself is liberation. In his words, he named this liberation as eternal love. Indeed, he underwent the same experience that all other enlightened masters had experienced. No part of the mind really fights against the mind. A wholesome, conflict-free mind that functions in liberation is mukti. Master Aurobindo narrates his experience like this. I continued to practice many kinds of meditations. I practiced pranayamas, breathing exercises. As a result of these, I got the ability to write poetry. I just do not know what the connection between pranayama and poetry is. Even then, that change happened in me. Actually, I was stuck without any improvement, as if I was repeatedly doing the same thing again and again. I never had the satisfaction of having attained that needed to be attained. So, I abandoned all my meditative practices. I had stopped doing anything for about a year. But all of a sudden, I felt a phenomenal change in me. I could not understand how and why it happened. But the change that had happened was real. During that time, I was not involving in any practices. Hence, I could not even guess why that change happened to me. I had a guru, master, at that time. I presumed that this change might have been the effect of his blessings and glory. I went to my master and inquired. He too inquired and understood the changes that happened in me. He said, "My son, even I have not attained the state that you have attained. Then how could I have blessed you with that experience? If so, how did I attain that state? I would not say that it had happened due to my effort because I was not doing any meditation and other practices for a year. Then how can I claim that I underwent that change because of my effort? Then what is the reason for this change? Who is the reason for this change? I can only say that the gods whom I pray, Lord Krishna and Parashakti, may be the reason behind the change." He concludes on his experience like this. What did really happen to him? He underwent the same experience that had happened to all other enlightened masters. There is no difference in that. At a stage when he did not know what to do further, he allowed his mind to function on its own. Even then, his mind has taken a year's time to flow, to function on its own. What did happen to Nisargadatta Maharaj? Nisargadatta Maharaj was practicing so many meditation techniques. He too had various kinds of experiences. He had visual glimpses of the divine energy. Still, he was persistently searching for something. He did not consider himself as a person who experienced the Absolute. His master taught him, "You are not an individual. You are the Absolute Reality. When I am the ultimate reality, what else do I search for?" He was thinking about this teaching for about 3 years. All of a sudden, one day, his search came to an end. He announced to the world that he attained liberation. What did happen to him? Until he was in search of something, he was operating his mind himself. Gradually, he reached a state when he concluded that he himself was the absolute truth and he was that. What will he search in this state? There was nothing else that existed for him to search. When he was not operating his mind, it started to function on its own with freedom. His mind convinced itself that it was the absolute reality. When that conviction was confirmed, the mind stopped its search. Just because it stopped its search, will the mind stop functioning? No, it was functioning, but it was functioning without any search. It functioned on its own in a liberated state. It functioned in liberation. He said to one of his disciples, "You need to understand that all the experiences are illusions and you alone are the absolute reality." The disciple inquired, "After you attained your self-realization, the enlightenment, the self-knowledge, did all the worldly experiences appear to you as illusions? Or did you get the enlightenment because all the worldly experiences appear to be illusory? Which one did happen first and which one second?" Nisargadatta Maharaj thought for a while and said with determination that he attained self-realization first, the realization that I am the Absolute. Only later did he realize that all the worldly experiences are illusions. Self-realization happens first, and then one understands that all the worldly experiences are illusions. He sequenced his experience like this. Did it happen to him in this order? As per his words, the self-realization that I am the Absolute seems to be of the highest state. As a result, he must have felt that all the worldly experiences are illusions. In fact, there does not exist any consciousness within us to feel and realize that I am the Absolute. For him also, only his mind had worked. His mind that was searching for something in the name of absolute reality held trust in the words of his Guru and has come to a conclusion that I am the Absolute, I am that. After concluding that I am the one that I have been searching for, his search ended. In a state where there was nothing to be attained or searched for, his mind had started functioning on its own. He has explained in his words how his mind functioned freely without getting stuck on anything. He described about liberation as a mindset that considers all the worldly experiences as illusory. How did he discover that I am the Absolute, I am that? How did he experience? Let us assume that we have kept milk in a glass bowl. We drink the milk. By tasting it, we understand that it is milk. Like this, is it possible for us to taste and understand the absolute reality? Is it possible to experience the absolute reality? Did Nisargadatta Maharaj also experience and discover something as I am that, I am the absolute reality? His words gave an impression that he discovered the absolute reality as if he had tasted it. But in fact, he had not discovered anything like that. no one can ever discover such a thing as absolute reality. Absolute reality is not an experience. It can't be experienced and realized. Then, how did he realize and understand the absolute reality? We have water in a glass bowl. We have milk in another glass bowl. They have been kept on a table side by side. Just by looking at them, we can identify which is water and which one is milk. There is no need to understand that by tasting only. In our day-to-day life, when we are performing our activities, we always have the I consciousness, I am. From the words of a master, if we form an opinion that I am the absolute reality and start having faith in it as it is, then the thought of I am the absolute reality gets strengthened. This is only a transformation of our thought process and not an experience. This transformation alone is sufficient. This transformation alone is required. Once this transformation happens, in that state, all our thoughts regarding worldly pleasures start to lose their significance. As a result, all our thoughts start to function on their own spontaneously. Because we do not give importance to any of the thoughts and select them. When we see an individual or an object, we convert them into thoughts and recognize them. Anything which is not converted into thoughts cannot be understood by us. All our activities are expressions of our thoughts. I am the absolute reality. I am that is also a thought. Our faith on those thoughts creates a sense of freedom in the functioning of the thoughts. But among the viewers, Nisargadatta Maharaj is looked upon as a strange human. He looks like a personality, one who carries the strange experience of I am the absolute reality, I am that with him. The real transformation that took place in him was the freedom of the mind's functioning. This freedom may happen due to many reasons. In fact, freedom of our mind's functioning is not something that we need to bring in. It is the very nature of our mind. Due to the change that had happened in our thought process, we stopped interfering in the freedom of our mind. As we do not select any part of our mind, the freedom of our mind is protected without any hindrances. The highest state that we need to attain is the liberated state of the mind, the free-flowing functioning of mind. That is the natural state of the mind too. We convert this natural state to a battlefield due to a wrong approach using our intellect. The real solution to all our problems is to understand the unnecessary function of our intellect. All the enlightened masters who attained this solution just encountered that accidentally. Many of them did not even know what they had attained and how they attained that. But what they had attained was true liberation. There is no doubt about it. When every one of them started explaining this understanding in their point of view, this natural thing got exaggerated. It had been described as something that could not be attained by an average human being. In fact, this liberation is a state that can be attained only by an ordinary human being. A few masters express the Samadhi state as the state of liberation. All kinds of Samadhi states are associated with efforts and practices. There is a possibility for our mind to soften and get rid of our struggles due to the experiences of Samadhi state. But there is a danger for the mind's functioning to freeze to the extent of not even being able to perform our regular activities. The liberation that resulted from Samadhi effort is neither natural and nor healthy. In the next section of this book, we are going to see more details about this Samadhi state with elaboration. Even though liberation is natural and simple, that is our lifeline and the highest state of life. In this liberated state, there is no compulsion or violence, no responsibility that is forced upon. It is not a state offering you with the promises of eternal bliss. It is not a destination, so no one can choose to attain it. In this liberated state, we do not choose any specific emotional experiences of our mind. We flow in the state of pravagam, flowing. If we choose anything, this pravagam free flow gives in to that choice. So, anyone with desire of attaining it or thinking of attaining it cannot really attain. For them, this becomes a mystery that will not ever show its existence. There is no such state or form to point to just because we say something or the other about that. In the state of liberation, we do not hold on to any psychological experience. Hence, all our experiences flow freely like pravagam, free-flowing river. The state of liberation is the free flow of our experiences. If there are no experiences, then there won't be the flow of experiences, the state of liberation. All the experiences are associated with the mind. So, liberation is also associated with the mind. When the mind functions with interruptions, it is called as struggle or bondage. When the mind functions without any struggle or bondage, it is called liberation. All the liberated ones have attained only this.